The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is Mitch Beinhacker. I was on mute there for a second. Stacey pointed that out. Thank you very much. We are going to talk today about introversion with Stacey, not how to get over it necessarily, but how to embrace it for your business, because I think that's a lot of things. A lot of times that's what holds people back. So we'll talk about that. If you are listening on your favorite directory, like I said, muted before, leave us a 5-star review. And if you are watching us on YouTube, like the podcast, subscribe, and keep connecting with us. So let's get on with today's show.
I think that introverts tend to be more uncomfortable with self-promotion.
Okay.
To go out there.
Like going on a podcast.
Yeah, going on the podcast or advocating for themselves. So let me go back to the entrepreneurial space. Standing up in front of a group of people and trying to sell their product.
Right. Forget it.
Or trying to, in the business world, not entrepreneurial space, right? Meeting with someone and advocating for a promotion, right? And bragging about what you've done.
Right.
We struggle with that.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Stacey Chazin, and I'm the founder of the I Factor, Igniting Introverted Leadership. I am a coach who works specifically to guide introverted professionals to identify their core innate strengths so that they can tap into those strengths and build the confidence they need to assert themselves, have their ideas recognized, and move into leadership roles in their current or future jobs.
All right, Stacey. So thanks for coming on the show, and I'm excited to talk about this stuff. I know people don't really consider me an introvert, but even the podcast was, it was difficult to put myself out there, to hear my voice, to, listen to an episode and hear yourself and record all these things. What are people going to think? So I think it's great what you do. And but why don't we go back and let's talk about your background in whatever corporate. I know you did nonprofits, and what did you do then? And then we'll work our way up to what you're doing now, and then talk about, some tips and tricks and how people can kind of embrace their Introversion, that's the word of the day, right?
Introversion, yeah, it's the word of
Yeah.
my everyday. And I'm glad it's your word today. And so I'll start off by saying I'll share a little bit about my academic background. I studied
Okay.
business and communication in college,
Okay.
marketing specifically within the business realm. I've
Okay.
always been a writer, love to write. I consider it one of my magic powers, part of my leadership DNA.
Okay.
And when I graduated college, a natural path for me to take that combined my marketing and communication degrees, I entered the world of public relations. And at the time, I will say I did not really have awareness that I was an introvert. And looking back now, probably going into PR was not the best choice for me as an introvert.
Yeah. You got to
Uh,
be out there, right? I mean, yeah.
right. Right, and I loved the writing part of it and the business and marketing part of it, but I hated the cold calling, and this was in the mid-90s
Right. Right.
before most people had email. The
Yeah.
internet was in its early years, so we actually had to pick up the phone and call
Yeah.
reporters or news desks to pitch a story, and I hated it,
Yeah.
and I thought, this is not for me long term."
And you're calling people that needed stories. You weren't like calling somebody to buy something that they didn't want, you know?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's a mix of that. They needed stories, but it was a sales role,
Yeah.
right?
'Cause they don't want your
Selling.
stuff. Right. Of
Yep,
course.
you're selling your angle, your story, your
Yeah.
clients, and it was just not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Right. It's very hard. You know, when I started in insurance, my dad was in insurance for most of his life.
Okay.
And I was a young guy, came out of law school, and I wanted to learn sales and stuff because they don't teach that stuff. So I remember I trained with a guy in New York, and I think the first thing they made you do was like cold call for like a couple of hours. And
Oh,
then they said, "What did you think?" I said, "I never want to do this again in my entire life. It was so bad, especially in the insurance business. Like nobody wants to talk to you
oh,
about that stuff. People hang up on you and whatever." So it was, yeah, I
yeah.
definitely was like, I'm going to change this and, not going to do it cold anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Well, I
Or,
I wanted to never pitch a cold call and pitch a story again
right.
in my life.
Yeah.
And I started to think about what I wanted to do next, and it was the very beginnings of my starting to apply a mindset of, "What do I wanna do with my life, with my career that's very much aligned with my values?"
Okay.
I really hadn't thought about it that way
Right. Well,
before.
you're still young at this point, right? You just
I
had a couple.
was, I was, I was about 30,
Oh, okay. Well, you're
30 or
not that
so.
young, but okay.
I
A
consider
little
that
bit of
young.
adult.
So
You're, yeah.
I decided to go back to school and get a master's in public health. A lot of what I
Okay.
had done in the PR field happened to be in the healthcare field
Okay.
or health adjacent fields.
Okay.
And I felt that going into studying public health and moving into that space would allow me to make a more direct difference in the lives of others. So I did that.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a job when I finished my MPH working for a health policy nonprofit organization, a national group located in New Jersey,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed the work. However, I continued to struggle with being able to have my approach to work, approach to life, my gifts, my strengths, and what others saw as my shortcomings. I struggled with really showing up as my best self.
Okay.
And the longer I worked there, I had an opportunity along with other staff. We had a company retreat where we had the opportunity to complete a Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment,
Sure.
or
Hmm.
MBTI,
Yeah.
which I now happily I'm certified as a Myers-Briggs practitioner myself now. And it was my first big aha moment as an introvert.
Because you'd never seen the Myers-Briggs
I
test
knew
before.
of it
Yeah.
tangentially, but
Right.
I hadn't done one before, and not surprisingly, one of my letters there was I, saying that I have a preference for introversion, and I had the opportunity. I read my whole report, and I felt like it was a window to my soul.
Okay.
I just thought, wow. So understanding how really it's how you're wired, right?
Hmm.
How you show up, how you're going to do your best work. It
Right.
really it captured me to a T. And I started thinking about how can I use what I've just learned about myself, where I knew some of it just instinctively, but how can I begin to use that to show up as a better leader, as
Right.
a better professional, and
Because you
stop.
still got to be out there. That's not an option. And if you're
I
an
had to be out
introvert, you're just
there.
going to lock yourself in a closet and then not deal with people. Like that's not going to work, right? So,
That's right. And
okay.
that's not at all what I would ever recommend to someone. But the
Right.
key is, how do you do that in ways that are true to who you are?
Hmm.
Because whenever we try to pretend to be something we're not, And you can say an introvert pretending to be an extrovert, like denying who you are as an introvert.
Kind of being forced to be an extrovert, right? That's what
That's
everybody
right.
tells us. Get out there and put yourself out there and you'll feel better about it. But that doesn't work for everybody.
That's right. It's not going to go well. Whenever we pretend to be something we're not, that's not a long-term solution for
Right.
growth and success.
Just a painful thing. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I became so interested in this that I went back to school again to build on what I already studied, and I got a master's in organizational development and leadership.
Okay.
And when I finished the program, and I loved
Like
it.
a corporate thing, like that kind of organizational development?
No,
No?
well, it could be, right? So organizational development, it could be any type of organization, a corporate
Okay.
entity, a nonprofit entity, academia, anything.
Got it. Okay.
And the theme of the program, when I looked back and what I had really gotten out of it, was the importance of leadership from a place of self awareness.
Okay.
And what that means is, as a leader, as an aspiring leader, or as a seasoned leader, the most important thing that you need to do to be successful and have the impact you want is to have self awareness of both your strengths
Right.
and your gaps.
Right.
You never have to be everything to everyone, but when you know what you're really good at, you can you can build on those skills. You can make sure you have the opportunities to use them as much as possible. And when
Right.
you know what you lack, you can surround yourself with people who fill those gaps.
Right. I can think that takes a little pressure off of you as well, right? If you say, oh, it's not something that's really not my skill set, that's okay, right? And it's okay
Right.
to, yeah, because I think like a lot of people who have to sell, let's say they're small business owners, they're
Yeah,
forced to sell, right? You can do things in a way that you're comfortable. You don't have to do it in a way that you're, like you said, like we're cold calling and we're like, this is the most dramatic thing
that's right.
that we've ever experienced. And if we don't stop doing this, we're going to end up in therapy. That is not the road that you want to come down. But as a lot of business owners, you can't just walk away from business development, right? So, yeah,
Absolutely. And that's true for any business skill, right? Any
yeah,
business need. There's a way that there are various ways to do everything.
right,
And I started to write about this when I finished my program. I started to publish some blog posts
hmm
about things that I had struggled with as an introvert.
just like a
Really,
personal diary blog type of
yeah,
thing.
for the most part,
Okay.
it was through my. I had a website, a consulting business. I was still doing some public health and health policy consulting, and I started
Okay.
my blog there. And I
Got it.
started reflecting on what my introversion meant for my leadership and some big aha moments I had. And for example, I wrote about the angst I had about going post COVID, going back to the big conference circuit,
Right.
attending a big meeting, and how I found that so draining as an introvert.
Yeah.
And I shared some strategies that worked for me. And I started hearing from people when I was writing these blogs that they felt seen, they felt heard, that they were really connecting with the things that I had struggled with as an introvert for
Yeah. It
so
was more
long.
common than you realized.
Yeah, and that the suggestions I had made to them, they were implementing and were really working. And at this point in my life, I realized all the experiences I've had, the degrees I acquired, the certification I got, they've all led me to this place where I know that my purpose is to coach other introverts, to help them gain the tools and confidence to be more effective and powerful and show their leadership potential at work. So
Yeah.
they can figure this out decades before I did.
Right. Because like I think of leadership and introversion, they're kind of like juxtaposed to each other, right? I
Ah,
mean, because you don't think of if somebody's an introvert, how are they going to be a leader? So let's explore that a little bit, right? Like
yeah,
some
and
of the worst
that's
things about
exactly the problem, that
it. Yeah,
people tend to equate leadership with the traits that are associated with extroversion.
right. Which probably is true in a lot of the cases, right? But you that doesn't mean that you can't be a leader
Yes, yes,
if
because
you're
we
right. That's
yes,
really
we think of
the
leaders as someone who is comfortable, networking with 50 people at a cocktail hour, standing
right,
up in front of a room and connecting with people, coming up with ideas on the spot, always collaborating, surrounding themselves with others,
right.
and being out in the world, being aggressive with their communication and their networking. And that's not how introverts are wired to act.
Right. Of course
Um, and we can do it, but we're not gonna be successful at it when we try to do it that way.
and it's going to be really painful and aggravating. You'll be upset. I mean, look, I don't consider myself an introvert, but walking into a cocktail party where I know nobody, 50 or 100 people in the room, is definitely horrifying. And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just gotta like jump in and talk to people and feel uncomfortable, and you do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I do, so I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
So if we talk about networking and building a network of relationships,
Right.
an extrovert attending a conference, right? They're going to go into a reception and say, all right, how many business cards can I collect? How many people
Right.
can I meet? Um, as an introvert, if we try to do that, we're going to be drained. We're going to need to retreat
Right.
immediately thereafter.
Total anxiety, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not great at this small talk with lots of different people and hopping from person to person.
Okay.
So what I recommend, and I have a conference survival guide for introverts that I
Oh, that's
can
good.
give you for the show notes.
Okay,
Um,
good. It's
Folks can
definitely
go to my
posted.
website, ifactorleadership.com/resources. I have a number of free resources, leadership resources for introverts, and that's one of them.
Okay, we'll put the links in the show notes.
Great. So here's what I recommend. Let's say you're going to a 3-day conference.
Okay.
For each day you're going to be at this conference, identify 3 people whom you want to meet ahead of
Okay.
time. Do your research on those 3 people, visit their LinkedIn page, go to their website, learn about them, learn about what's important to them, identify what it is you want to get out of the conversation. Um, it could be you want to talk about an article they published. You might want to get career advice. You might want to, maybe you're looking for a job, whatever it is. Plan that ahead of time. Write down a couple bullet points for what you want to get out of the conversation, what you want to share with the other person. And each day, try to find those 3 people. When you've gotten through your 3 people, you're done. Anything on top of that is icing on the cake, but
Okay.
get through your 3 people, make a plan for follow-up when you get home. So send them an email, connect with them on LinkedIn, whatever that is. And what you'll find is those 9 people who you've met and connected with over the course of the conference, as an introvert, that's going to serve you so much better because you will have formed deeper initial relationships with these
It's probably true
folks.
for anybody, not just now,
Absolutely.
Stacey, what happens if that information is not available pre-attendance? Like,
Yeah.
because you go to networking events and then they send everybody a copy of the business cards after the event. So you haven't.
Right.
Okay.
Right. For many conferences these days, you'll have an app where
Right.
you'll be able to
Attendees
see the
and stuff.
roster. But if you're going to a networking event,
Yeah.
I would say um, still focus on 3. So you're not going to be able to prepare in the same way,
Yeah, but still
but
focus on just meeting 3 people's enough.
just meeting 3 people
Yeah.
and
I
then
would
let
say if you meet
yourself.
one good person, it was a productive
Oh, I
endeavor.
think so. I
Yeah,
think so for sure.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
the networking is one piece of it.
Okay.
The other thing that introverts tend to be really great at is reading context and nuances in situations and in other people. So when
Okay.
we're thinking about as a leader, whether you're a CEO, an executive director, or maybe just a director of a team, you have the ability as an introvert to read between the lines. We're very good at picking up on nonverbal cues, at reading people's facial expressions, at understanding the nuances of a situation that's contentious or you're involved in a conflict.
Right.
Because we tend to sit back and listen
Yeah.
more than speak, that also.
Right. The extrovert is going and going and going. Everything's running, and
That's right.
they don't notice as many
That's
details. I
right.
would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not listening. We're very good at active listening, like
Right.
sitting back, listening to what other people are saying, looking at their facial expressions, their body
Right.
language. So if someone's leaning in, after you say something, probably something you've said has resonated positively with them. If they're sitting back and they're folding their arms, it's going to suggest that they're more defensive.
Right.
So we're very good at using our high levels of empathy and emotional intelligence and the fact that we are very strong active listeners. We combine those skills and that lets us assess a situation, and then when we're weighing in with our decision or our opinion, it's likely going to come from a place of deeper thought and consideration than it would in an extroverted person who is more likely to be thinking out loud and offering up ideas or decisions in the moment.
Very good. I mean, some of this seems intuitive, but I think that maybe if you're an introvert and you're just anxious about, you know, the whole situation, you miss these things. Like you're just too
Yeah.
worried about what's gonna, how you're gonna
Yeah.
feel, what are people gonna think.
Right. And the problem is too many of us, because most workplaces are extrovert aligned and the way people
Right.
think is aligned with extroversion. If you see someone around the table who's not speaking up, the inclination is to think that they are not as smart or they don't have as much leadership potential as other people who are speaking up frequently. But
Right.
the fact is, as an introvert, if you have the opportunity to spend time after a meeting digesting what was said, sitting with the information, letting your thoughts um, letting your thoughts marinate and develop them when you have time to think through them in a quieter space, the ideas that you're going to produce could be just as good, if not better, than what the extroverts around the table offered in the moment. And people don't realize that.
Right. So when you started down the path of coaching, right?
Mhm.
Introversion, how did you get, I mean, it's not like a topic that's studied, or maybe it is. You know what I mean? Like how did you go down that path, developing materials, developing a business, developing an approach, a methodology, just based on your own personal experience? You hadn't done like research studies, or I guess there
Yeah.
are research studies to read, but what did you do?
All
How did
right,
you
so
start
here's how I
developing?
got there.
Yeah.
When I had this inkling that I wanted to start supporting introverted professionals, the first thing I did after my master's degree
Hmm.
in organizational development and leadership was I got certified in the Myers-Briggs framework. So
Okay.
that gave me a lot of insights into how introverts, how we're wired, and the type of support we need, the way we tend to show up in different situations, and the challenges that we tend to face.
Okay.
But I thought, you know what? There are so many thousands, I mean, hundreds I don't even know how many, tens of thousands of Myers-Briggs consultants and coaches. And
Yeah.
that wasn't a way that I was gonna be able to create a business that was unique. Even if I was focused on introverts. Like, a little interesting, but what's
Right.
different about it? And I thought back to my MSODL program. The very first course I took in that program that got me hooked was called Appreciative Inquiry. And what
Okay.
appreciative inquiry is, it's an organizational model that's entirely focused on the positive. So, what it means is if you have some goals for yourself as a business,
Okay.
rather than a consultant helping you figure out what's not working and fixing all those things, a consultant using appreciative inquiry would come in and help you figure out what is working and how can you build on those strengths and accomplishments to get where you want to be going.
Okay. Well, I mean, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I'll give you a really quick example, and this brought it to life for me. When I was learning about this years and years ago, British Airways was having a problem with a really high rate of lost luggage.
Okay.
And of course, that's, other than getting to your destination safely, your next big priority is I hope my bag got here with me.
Right. Having no
Nothing
clothes
worse,
on your vacation.
right?
Right. Of course.
A consultant coming in who used the appreciative inquiry framework helped British Airways to reframe their question from how can we reduce our rate of lost luggage to how can we deliver an exceptional customer arrival experience,
Okay.
which of course incorporates making sure the luggage gets there and that it gets there
Yeah.
on time.
Just one piece, right?
And the idea with appreciative inquiry is you guide the organization or you guide individuals working there to reflect on what are some peak experiences we had as an organization. When have we showed up as our best? When are we delivering that optimal experience? And then exploring, okay, what were we doing? How were we working together? What skills were we using? What approach did we take? What was our mindset?
Right.
And by looking at what are those mindsets and skills and practices that were showing up when we've been our ideal selves, you can begin to see what's known as the organization's positive core, which is
Right.
the best of who they are as an organization.
Yeah.
And I discovered when I was thinking through my entrepreneurial vision that there's a corollary to appreciative inquiry called appreciative coaching. And it's the same idea. It's
Okay.
helping individuals to figure out the best of who they are, not trying to fix what's not working,
Right.
but trying to say, as an individual, what makes you tick? What are your core strengths? And the way I do that as a coach is asking my clients to reflect on what are some times that you showed up as your best. When
Yeah.
did you feel great about the work you did, that you were contributing, that you were making a difference, that you had the opportunity to bring your true talents to the table?
Yeah.
And when they look at those peak experiences, we then explore, okay, what were you doing? What was your role? What were your skills? What did you contribute? And I guide them to identify what their positive core is, and then to figure out how can you use that positive core to reach your goals. So I know that was a lot, but
No, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of times we do focus on the negative and improving those things, and then
yes,
we neglect the things that we're good at, but it doesn't make intuitive sense, right? It makes better sense. I'm not saying ignore the things that you're struggling with, but
yeah,
to spend all your energy trying to fix the things you're not good at to begin with
that's
at the
right.
behest of the things that you are good at doesn't seem like you'd get a lot of traction out of that. Just
No,
a lot
and
of
it's
frustration.
also a little demoralizing when you're focused on the negative. It really affects your frame of mind, your attitude, your
Yeah, it's
confidence.
emasculating. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So my
absolutely.
business model incorporates the appreciative coaching framework, the Myers-Briggs tool. We start off with the Myers-Briggs so folks can see what their introversion looks like and their other aspects of their personality. And then I walk them through this, and all of my tools and my teachings are specifically designed for introverts.
Hmm.
So helping introverts to tap into their strengths, their characteristics, their positive core to achieve their business goals.
How are you doing most of this in the corporate setting, like in corporate, or are you doing individuals coaching or a little bit of
Right
both?
now I'm doing individuals, but I also am available to do workshops in this space.
Yeah,
But
workshops, right?
uh, yes, for the coaching is done individually. I have a 6-month coaching program, and then I also have an on-demand program called the Introverts Leadership Formula, and it's a series of self-paced video modules with a little bit of live coaching from me that helps introverts improve their communication skills. So, how can you become a more powerful communicator using your
Mhm.
strengths? How can you prevent burnout? So, for a lot of introverts, the energy of our extroverted workplaces drains our energy and makes it hard for us to show up as our best selves. And then really, how can you gain the confidence and tools to ask for a promotion, a raise, or anything else you want to ask of your manager?
Yeah.
How can you tap into your introverted gifts to do that powerfully?
Okay. And you'll give me links to all those. Well,
Yep.
actually, if you're listening to this, they're probably in the show notes right now. So
Yep. And you can find them all at ifactorleadership.com.
got it. Very good. Okay. So as an introvert, right,
Yes.
you start your program or you start your journey. Let's call it a journey. Okay.
Yeah.
In building this business, what do you do for business development? Like you already know you're an introvert, right? It's not a really identifiable. I mean, we know a lot of people have introversion issues probably on a spectrum, right?
Mhm.
Some are very introverted, some are somewhat introverted. There's always some situation we can find somebody who's going to be uncomfortable, right? But
Yeah.
it's not an identifiable marketplace from a business development and so what did you do? Like what did day one look like?
How do I find the introverts?
Yeah,
That's a piece
the
of it.
ones that are hiding and don't want to talk to you.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because it's especially hard to connect with introverts because if you're,
Yeah,
"Hey, give me a call. I want to talk with you." Most introvert, "Oh, no, that's okay. I don't need to
right.
talk.
They're not going to
Like,
respond to an email or a post that you put out
yeah.
because they're
Um,
introverted.
the posts are easier than the live getting people to schedule a call with me. That's been a little more challenging. So I need to give people a lot of steps en route to that, other options.
Right.
And it could be engaging with me on social media.
Right. Like a longer funnel, a deeper
Yes.
funnel, right?
Yes, for sure. Because I
Yeah.
think when you're trying to reach that audience, it takes a little bit more to build the relationship and
Right.
to
They want to
cultivate
read
that
more. They want
trust.
to understand more about you. They want to understand more about why this applies to them, right? All
Yeah.
that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So as
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I want to see. So how
Okay.
did you start this whole
So,
process?
as an introvert,
Yeah.
marketing to introverts,
Yeah.
I thought about, all right, what's part of my leadership DNA, part of my positive core?
Right.
And for example, part of my positive core, as I mentioned, is that I'm a strong writer and I love to write.
Yeah. Good.
So I do a lot of blog posts.
Right.
I do email marketing, but in a way that I try not to. My business coach pushes back on me. I don't want to be salesy and flashy. Like that's not my comfortable space. And I think that
Right.
as an introvert, I know that I don't respond to that well.
Right.
So it's more my approach is rooted in storytelling, sharing the experiences that I've had
Right.
discovering my introversion, going through many years of trying to deny it and suppress it and pretend to be
Right. What
extroverted. And
creates authority in the space, right?
that's right. How that harmed me. And then what happened when I stopped doing that, when I started leaning into who I was. So I write a lot about that
Okay.
so that my target audience knows that I get them. I
Now,
have
how do you
really
know
been
you're reaching them though? Like if we
um,
bought a list of people that were, business owners with certain criteria, we could do that, right? We can't get a list of people who are introverts
yeah. So I have a marketing email list that I've been cultivating.
that you've been building over time.
I've been building over
Big
time.
key, by the way, to success of anything. Podcasts, businesses, you have to have a keep in touch program of people the 3 people, right, that you said that you met at the networking
That's
You should
right.
add them to your list. Tell them you added. They can opt out at any time, and you want to keep in touch. Yeah.
That's right. And it's letting people know, hey, you can opt out at every time. I say you can opt out at any time, but I don't think you're going to want to.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
a great
I say.
way to say it. I should say that more often.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm cultivating that. It's slow. We're so inundated with emails, of course, as you and your listeners know. So it's giving them a reason to sign up through the tools that I've created that I hope are that I know are very much aligned with the challenges they're facing and that are going to help them to use their strengths, their gifts to overcome business challenges and
Right.
reach their goals. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Right.
Um, I've been doing a lot of podcast interviews.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel though that the most traction I've gotten so far is related to the blogs that I write.
Right.
And when I share them on social media, I have a fairly big connection base on LinkedIn. That's where I am a lot because people are what I'm talking about is how you can use the gifts of your introversion in professional spaces.
Right. So LinkedIn makes sense.
I get a lot of feedback there. I get a lot of people messaging me privately there. I reach out to people on LinkedIn. If someone has liked one of my posts or commented one of my posts, I'll send them a direct message on LinkedIn, thanking them, responding some way to what they said, and then asking if they'd like to receive either a specific resource from me or to join my list to get the other free resources that I share.
Right. Well, that's when we can talk about that. We'll take a commercial break now, but when we come back, we can talk a lot about that because I think people who are either very introverted or slightly introverted can understand that there are ways to, we'll call it develop business. We won't call it sales,
Yeah.
right? To develop business by casting a wider net, creating authority. It is a longer haul, but
Yeah.
as you interact with people, you do it comfortably. You share information. You're not saying, "Hey, sign up for my program."
Right.
Just want, that type of thing. So let's take a quick commercial. I think a minute or two, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about that stuff. Make
Sounds
sense?
great.
Okay. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right. So we're back. So we're talking about introversion, but specifically for small business owners, right? Because small business owners are in positions where they kind of have to do things maybe that they feel that they don't want to do. Right. But I think that, I always tell people, the marketing supports the networking supports the marketing, the approach, the meeting people, whatever. And there are certain professions and situations that do that. But if somebody's just not comfortable with that, right? We were talking before we took a break that there are ways to, go about it. It's a longer haul. It took a while for me to get the email list I have for the podcast and for my practice. It took
Yeah.
a long time, but you need some staying power, I guess.
Yeah. I'm feeling that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that, I mean, look, I'm not saying that people who are introverted shouldn't go to networking events. I know you're
No.
not saying that either,
Yeah.
right? We're just saying this is a way to do it that makes you comfortable. This is a way to do the things you need to do and be comfortable doing it. I think I said that to you before we got on the microphone, right? Successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. The reasons behind them doesn't really matter, right? If you're
Yeah.
introverted, that may be why you're not doing it. So you got to figure out a way, maybe using your help, that you can do this and do it comfortably, right? We don't have to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable with how we run our business, develop our business, and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to lean across that discomfort line here and there.
right.
But so I'll give you an example. I
Yeah,
record videos sometimes that I post on LinkedIn,
yeah,
where and oftentimes when I publish a blog post, I'll do a 1 to 2 minute video previewing the blog post, talking about my personal experiences behind it, and et cetera, and I do captions and all that stuff.
right.
And even though I'm sitting in my office by myself when I'm recording those, it's not my favorite thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's not your favorite thing for extroverts. I can't imagine,
Okay, that's great to
Yeah.
know. So
Oh,
it's not
yeah,
my favorite
absolutely.
thing. So what I do is and this is a piece of advice I give to my coaching clients and in my courses too, is I think about, for me, what is my most energetic time of day?
Okay.
So for me, I'm a morning person. I can get up at 6 a.m. and by 7 a.m., I'm doing my best work of the day sometimes.
Okay.
In part because I don't have calls. There's nothing looming on my calendar, no distractions.
Right.
But
Don't
I'm
worry.
most energized then.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I'll record maybe 2 videos in a morning before
Okay.
my day gets started, when I'm still fresh, when I've had my coffee, but I'm ready to take on the world. And I know for me, that's when recording those videos is going to be the least draining for me. Because when I think about things that introverts don't love to do as entrepreneurs, most of them pertain to the effect the activity has on our energy. And that's really what defines us as an introvert. Is that
Right.
engaging with others, being out in the world, tends to drain our energy. And it's
Right.
the opposite for extroverts, of course.
Yeah. Well, I also find that if you do them earlier in the day, then you're not aggravated and worried and drained by it all day long.
Oh, thinking about it. Yeah,
Thinking
that's a
about, oh,
great
I got to
point.
record this at 4 o'clock. I'm going on this show. I'm going to do. Yeah, I mean, look, I get anxiety on Thursdays. I'm like, who am I talking to tomorrow? What do I got to do? Do I have Stacy's stuff? Do I have her
Yeah.
bio to remember what she did? Oh, yeah, she's the one that coached about it. And then I have one at 3 today. I
Yeah.
don't have any of her stuff. I thought I did, but I looked and I'm like, oh, this happens all the time. So, yeah. And then you just got to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah. Um, I also, when I think about networking, one of the things that I do is I've joined a local group. So where I am, the South Jersey Women in Business, a
Okay.
networking group that meets twice a month for an hour on a Tuesday morning. We sit around a conference table in someone's donated office space, and everyone shares what they do. Each meeting, someone presents. They might present a challenge that they're facing, and we help one another. Like we workshop it to
Yeah.
give them advice. But there are generally like 25 people at each event, at each meeting. So it's manageable. I try to connect with 1 or 2 people after the meeting each time to forge a relationship. That's where I'm getting connections. I'm getting hopefully business opportunities, but it's also, as an introvert who works exclusively from home, which is
Hmm.
a lovely thing as an introvert, or a lovely thing
Right.
for many people even.
Right.
It gets me out into the world, engaging with other people, but not in an overwhelming way.
Now, is this a membership group, meaning it's the same people once a month,
Yes,
so you're getting to know them and become more comfortable with them? And
correct.
because those are my best groups, the ones that we have, social events once a quarter, and then we get together twice a month. And,
Yeah,
does business come out every time? No, but everyone's gotten to know each other so well that when something comes up, people reach out and everybody's very supportive of it.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's a more supportive environment than just going to a chamber event where you walk in with your business card and a little name tag, right? You
yeah.
ever do those?
No, I
You're
haven't
just
done
like,
those.
yeesh. Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like it's
I
not
do
for
them
me.
because I have to. I'm very involved in the chamber, but yeah, I usually try and find somebody who'll go with me.
I don't know, Mitch. Maybe you're an introvert and you just
I'm
don't
probably
know it.
more of an introvert. I was when I was younger, very much so. I was a quiet kid. I
Yeah,
didn't like to do public speaking. And then I got involved in ironically enough, like Jewish youth through my temple and stuff. And I became an officer, I think, because nobody wanted to do whatever it was. And then I got thrown into it. And the next thing you know, I'm speaking in front of groups. And,
Yeah.
a lot of that's hard. And some of it is like you mentioned videos. Sometimes it's good to like video yourself and then watch it. Don't put it out. Don't like publish it anywhere, but just like video yourself talking, and then you can delete it afterward. But I think seeing yourself, you become, like you said, what was the thing you said when we started? Becoming self-aware,
Yeah.
not self-conscious. That's like a different thing, right? But
Yes.
self-aware of who you are. I always say the first time you do something is like the worst time, because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Nobody really thinks all these things that you're uncomfortable about. You know,
That's exactly
they
right.
just don't, right?
I remember early on when I launched this business, someone who runs a podcast called The Quiet and the Strong, which is a podcast for introverts, came across my
Perfect.
stuff, I think
Yeah.
through LinkedIn, and he reached out and said, "I would love to have you on my podcast." I almost threw up. Like, what?
Just asking you, right?
And of course I said yes.
Yeah.
And I prepared ad nauseum. I was so nervous, and I had all my cheat sheets around me. I practiced my introduction and blah blah blah. And I think I've probably done 40 podcasts since then. And not that I don't prepare, because I do,
Right. But
but
it just
maybe
makes,
15,
right? You were
right?
over prepared, probably. Right.
Maybe
Exactly.
15 minutes before it starts, I pull out my notes, I refresh myself, and it's much
Yeah.
more on the fly because I've gotten so much more comfortable telling my story,
Right.
and talking about the ways that I help people.
Right. Practice
So,
definitely matters, become better at
but
what
I'll
you
tell
say.
you a secret.
Yeah.
I've only ever listened to one of the podcasts I've been on, because
Yeah. I don't listen to I really should, but I don't listen to my shows either. It's like, don't they say that? Like if you're an actor, you don't watch your movie, or you don't want, because
yeah,
it's
I
going to
get it.
affect yeah, I think it does. I think then you become self-conscious. You go from self-awareness
Right.
to self-conscious.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know yeah, I think one of the early, so I do guesting too, right, for my law practice or whatever. So one of the early shows was a while ago. I was on the Success podcast, and I mean, I don't give people, right, I didn't give you questions we're going to ask and
Right.
whatever, because I don't want it to be like that, like you have stress about stuff. And I have had guests that would email me like every day up until the show, can you send me questions, like what are you going to ask me? I'm like, listen, we'll just have a nice conversation. So this person sent me a whole list of questions ahead of time, and I took it like they were suggestions, and I was like, oh, okay, and I just put it aside. And I started the podcast, and he starts taking out this piece of paper, like unravel, and I realized,
Oh boy.
yeah, he's going to ask me all this. I don't remember what the question. I don't remember, Stacey, like what I even said. Friend was like, "Oh, you were great on the show." I'm like, "What did I say?" Like I totally didn't remember, because of the anxiety of like what, just making it up as I go. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't. But now I don't care. But I remember one of the early ones. And so maybe I am, to a large extent, an introvert. I just have gotten to the point where I felt. I mean, my dad was always in sales,
Yeah.
since he was young, and he was always throwing that stuff at me. And you should learn, and I did. When I got out of law school, I was like, I couldn't sell anything. It was just uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
So it was like you said, I was forced to do the things that were not my strengths instead of nurturing the things that I am good at. So, for what it's worth, I guess, here I am now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't be an independent lawyer. I'd be working for some firm and just working in a cubicle and
Yeah.
not out there helping the world. But so, okay. So you gave me an example. So what would you say are more of the common, like, in business,
Hmm.
that people who are introverted have more trouble with than people who are extroverts? Some of them are obvious, we already talked about, but are there other things that you see?
I think that introverts tend to be more uncomfortable with self promotion.
Okay.
To go out
Like
there,
going on a podcast.
yeah, like
Yeah.
going on the podcast or advocating for themselves. So let me go back to the entrepreneurial space. Um, Standing up in front of a group of people and trying to sell their product.
Right. Forget it.
um, or trying to in the business world, not entrepreneurial space, right? Meeting with someone and advocating for a promotion, right? And
Yeah.
quote unquote
Forget it.
bragging about what you've done.
Right.
We
Yeah.
struggle with that,
Very uncomfortable about that.
right? So
Right.
it's less about, like, in the sales space, it's less about tooting your own horn overtly and telling the story of how your product or your service can change that person's life or solve the problem that they have.
Right. To get away from what you what you envision as being like a sales pitch, right? I mean, I think that's what everybody thinks. They're like in the Javits Center at some conference and they're given a demonstration, and that's what, and people, and they got to be sharp and do this and do that. I think people have that. People like they do throw up when they have to sell. I think some people get so nervous and
Yeah.
really disgusted with the process. But like you said, it can be more about helping people than, and if you're aware about it, if you're self-aware
Right.
about it, right?
Right.
And you
And you're
create a
solving some problem they have. You're going to improve their life, their business, something about where they are now and where they want to be headed. You're the bridge to get them there. And
right.
to the extent that you can tell the story of how you can do that. We tend to be really good storytellers as introverts, in part because so many of us are voracious readers.
Yeah.
So we've been reading stories our whole lives. We're very good at weaving a story and delivering it.
Yeah. I think people subconsciously like that. Like they like the comfort of knowing that what you're talking about, as opposed
Yeah.
to just trying to sell something. And I think that in today's society, maybe I'm wrong, but in today's society, I think people are more transparent than they used to be. Like people see through the slick salesman and they don't
Mhm.
see through people who are honest and, just well read and know their stuff. And,
Yeah.
if you buy, you buy. If you don't, you don't. I'm just trying to help you and do the best that we can. And maybe this isn't right for you, but here's that type of stuff.
Yeah.
More of a, what's the word? Can't think of the word. A diagnostician. Is that a word?
It's a word. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think if you do more diagnoses and helping people that way, look, the doctor doesn't feel like he's selling. The lawyer generally doesn't feel like they're selling services. At some point you got to ask, do you want to move forward with this? But
Yeah.
generally it's just giving advice, right?
Yeah, and I start people off really. My hope is even I do a free 30-minute introvert career strategy call. If someone wants to I help them to begin to identify what are your strengths as an introvert and how can you begin to use that to transform your career. Just giving them a different lens to think about it, even if they're not going to end up working with me.
Yeah.
My hope is that I've flipped the way they perceive the way that they are wired, and if they can begin seeing their innate um, preferences and the way that they approach the world as a gift rather than something they need to fix. Um, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And then
Yeah.
hopefully they'll
And
see the
ultimately
value.
that helps you anyway, because goodwill and helping people, I do the same thing. It just comes back, just doing the right thing and just helping people. Look, there's plenty of times where I say, listen, I'm not the right attorney for you, but I do know somebody who can handle this for you. And then, and that always comes back to help you. Now, in the business world, the small business world, do you find that there tend to be people that are introverted who are more attracted to certain types of businesses than others? Have you
Um,
done that data analysis
I've
or
not done that data analysis. I mean, I think you can be an introvert and work in any space in any field. Probably a role as a front desk receptionist is not probably the right role for
right?
you, where
It's
you're
not a big
constantly
yeah,
interacting with people. I
right.
think in terms of starting your own business,
Yeah,
to the extent that the services you provide, that you have opportunities to deliver those on a one-on-one basis, or that there's some virtual component to what you're doing, like my online course, right? People who enroll in that course, the Introverts Leadership Formula, most of what they do is, excuse me, are self-paced video modules, but
right,
then they also get one private coaching session with me,
right,
and we have a group coaching session twice a month.
right.
So most of the product is virtual
Yeah,
and does not call for me to engage live with other people.
which is hard for them sometimes.
Well, they prefer it. I think they
Right.
prefer that they can do it on their own time,
Yeah.
but with some of the coaching for me. And I prefer it because I couldn't coach people all day long every day.
Well, that's one of the problems, right? Is that how do you, as a coach, duplicate
Yeah.
your services without, because a lot of what you do, me too, right, is very personal. So people hire you. You're not going to like raise 30 coaches, all who know introversion and are introverts, and they're going to
Yeah.
coach in your organization. Could you find one or two that work with you? Sure. But,
Yeah.
it's at some point your time is limited. So if you can duplicate that,
That's
especially if it works better for the customer or the client, then
right.
you get
That's
better
the beauty of
results.
it.
Yeah.
It aligns with how I'm wired and how my my client base is wired.
So without revealing any, private information about anybody, what about like success stories? Do you have any of those, like little
Yeah.
success feedback?
So I will say that the biggest challenge I hear from my clients in their professional lives is that they lack confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're excellent writers or presenters or deep strategic thinkers, they they A, don't fully appreciate those skills, and
Right.
B, they don't have the confidence to bring them to bear, to show up with those because they think that somehow those skills are less than what extroverts around the table are doing. And uh, one of my favorite stories is I have a client who was working for a nonprofit organization
Okay.
where she just wasn't appreciated for what she was doing.
Right.
And she was showing up as her true introverted self. And the feedback that she was sharing with me from her board told me that they were expecting her to be an extrovert
Right.
and that they were not valuing what she was doing.
Right.
And I want to say for better or for worse, but I think absolutely for the better, she was let go from her job.
Okay.
And she immediately recognized that as a gift because we had spent time talking about what are your gifts as an introvert? What do you want to achieve? And how challenging it was for her to do that in the current working situation she
Environment.
was
Right.
in.
Sure.
And the fact that she was able to see that as a positive, that it gave her this new lease on her professional life. And I think within a month or two, she found what was her dream job. And she didn't accept that job without holding it up against what her values are
Right.
and
Like
what her
laying
strengths are.
down, this is the way it's going to be, and this is why who I am ahead
Well,
of
that
time.
was part of it, communicating that to them, but also
Yeah.
in her mind when assessing the opportunity, she knew I to be successful in this new role, I need to know that I'm gonna be able to show up as my
Right.
authentic
Right.
self.
If the board was like the one at the last job, this is
Yeah,
not for her. This is not
and
going
that
to work. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I see in my clients,
Yeah.
that I equip them with the mindset and the tools to assess new opportunities through a mindset of, um a lens of positivity
Yeah.
and the mindset of is this opportunity going to let me show up as my best self, do my best work and feel more fulfilled
Yeah.
in the
Well,
way that I'm contributing.
it sounds like a lot of your stuff is about self-awareness, about just becoming
Yes.
aware of who you are, what you do, that's okay. You can be successful and do it in a way that you're comfortable, that fit your skills, and maybe look, maybe they don't recognize some of their talents and skills because they haven't get being supported in that regard.
Yeah.
They've been told you got to push out into the world and this and that, and then they don't recognize or accept the fact that, oh, I'm not a good writer, and everybody's
Yeah.
like, you're a great writer, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's like a humble. I think introverts need to feel like they need to be more humble than extroverts are like boom. So
Yes.
that's definitely a trait that I had when I was young. I was
Yeah.
always quiet and not, I don't want to be on the honor roll and you post it on social media. Oh, you got an A+. No, forget it. Like I just like there's no need for that. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So we're coming up on an hour. So what is in the future for Stacey?
Future for Stacy
Yeah.
is I am continuing to learn from
Okay.
my clients about the support that they need. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, I'm learning more and more, or it's become increasingly apparent to me that lack of confidence is one of the biggest things that introverted professionals struggle with,
Right.
um, including entrepreneurs. And so I'm continuing to create resources and offering coaching and online teachings that support that piece specifically. How can you change your mindset?
Yeah.
What tools can you use so that you can go out into the world and own your greatness?
Yeah.
Uh, Show the world the rock star that you already are as an introvert, right?
Yeah.
Not despite your introversion, but because of your introversion.
Yeah. Well, there's a book in there.
Oh, I'm writing it.
Yeah, you're already working on it, and you're a good
Yes.
writer. So, I think there's a lot of good titles, but I think there's a lot of people that would like to read about from an introvert's perspective who is successful, how I can,
Yeah.
embrace who I am and be successful.
Yeah, and for any of your listeners, I am who are introverts and have had experiences they want to share, I would love to hear your stories to include in my
Yeah.
book.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
folks can reach out to me at my website, ifactorleadership.com. My contact information is there. I would love to
Okay.
set up a call to hear about your experiences and have you be in my book.
Awesome. All right. That was a great offer. So, anybody's listening, if you consider yourself an introvert, you have a great story, or you want to share some things
Yep.
in the show notes, reach out to Stacey at her website. Stacey, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today.
Thanks,
And
Mitch.
stick around. We'll go to credits and then we'll wrap it up.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.